Welcome to M2M Coverage. Today is Tuesday. Yesterday, we saw the New Orleans Saints lose to the Las Vegas Raiders. First game in Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders defeat the Saints 34-24. Drew Brees said that the Saints were out of sync. He was 26 for 38, 312 yards passing, a touchdown, and an interception. I agreed that the Saints were out of sync. I think that was a weak showing for the Saints. We all picked the Saints to win. So I'm going to start with Kevin. Is there cause for concern in New Orleans?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to admit that the New Orleans Saints looked terrible on Monday. And it's actually concerning because it wasn't only Drew Brees. When we looked at the season, everyone was talking about how vaunted the Saints defense is with the addition of Malcolm Jenkins because we lost Von Bell. And then also defensive line without Marcus Davenport, it still was a solid unit with Trey Hendrickson. But overall, we saw an undisciplined team on Monday. Over 10 penalties for over 100 penalty yards. The New Orleans Saints leads the NFL right now in penalties. And not only that, but Cam Jordan is the story of the night. Cam Jordan had 0 pressures against a third-string right tackle. Mind you, actually, Denzel Good is actually the backup guard for the Raiders, who the Raiders had to move to tackle because they lost Trent Brown and Sam Young against the Panthers. So how does an all-pro like Cam Jordan have 0 pressures against a third-string right tackle? That makes no sense to me. And not only that, but Marshawn Lattimore was getting beat by rookies. He was getting beat by rookies. The only good player, I think, on the Saints defense last night was probably Demario Davis. And with the offense, too many miscommunications between Drew Brees and wide open receivers. You don't often see Drew Brees miss wide open receivers. And that one pass to Josh Hill, and he missed it wide. It wasn't even close. And the fact that Drew Brees is hailed as one of the most accurate quarterbacks in history, actually the most accurate quarterback in history, that is a cause of concern. But I think we need to, chill out on saying the Saints are over or that Drew Brees is washed. After all, you named Drew Brees' stat line. It wasn't that bad. And when you're accustomed to greatness, a standard or kind of bad or decent performance may seem as terrible. And for Drew Brees, that is what it is. It was not up to his standard. But when you compare it to other quarterbacks around the league, it's normal. And also this Saints team, if you look in the history, the Saints have never started 2-0 since the 2013 season when they started 5-0. 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, they always at least lost one game in their first 2 games. And if you look at last year, they lost a terrible game to the Rams. And the year before that, they lost to the Buccaneers. So don't worry about the Saints. I mean, I think we need to start worrying if they lose to the Packers and then even lose a game after that and start off 1-3. But don't forget, they beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. So still 1-1 and atop the NFC South.
Yeah, the key point there was still top of the NFC South, which is turning out to be a weaker division than we thought it would be. But they just got completely outplayed by the Raiders yesterday. The Raiders' offensive line was depleted, and they still had Darren Waller. Nobody on the Saints can match up with Darren Waller. Like, Dennis Allen was trying, but Darren Waller just went off completely yesterday. And the Raiders had a running game. Jalen Richard got a touchdown in the late that I think really kind of put an exclamation point on the Raiders outplaying the Saints in that second half. And ever since the first few drives, it just seemed like there's no rhythm. 1st and 10 doesn't get any yards. And, you end up in 2nd and long and penalties, holding, and just the whole thing comes crumbling down. So, Geoff, do you have a disagreement there? Do you think there's cause for concern with the Saints?
Yeah, the Saints looked horrible last night. I mean, the Raiders tight end, Darren Waller, he went off. He had 11 receptions, a touchdown. And one of the touchdowns, he was wide open. I don't know why no one was guarding him. But with that being said, I don't think there's too much to worry about the Saints defense. They were extremely undisciplined last night. They gave up too many penalties. But I think that's something they can fix. I think that will be fixed. But I'm worried about Drew Brees. This is 2 straight weeks where he has been absolutely horrible. He doesn't look like the same quarterback that he was before. And if Drew Brees keeps playing like this, even if Michael Thomas comes back and if the Saints lose a couple more games, I would consider benching him for a few games if they keep losing. And because they have a 5,000-yard passer who had 30 touchdowns last year on the bench. But with all that being said, let's stop overreacting because it's week 2. I think Drew Brees is taking all this criticism. He's going to go to the gym. He's going to work out. He's going to fix all his mistakes. And if you'll just look at the first 2 weeks, Mitchell Trubisky is a franchise quarterback. So let's stop overreacting over 2 weeks. I think everything's going to be fine. I think Drew Brees will fix his mistakes. I think the Saints defense will be much better next game. And I think the Saints can beat the Packers next week by a wide margin because this Packers team, they played the Lions, and before that they played the Minnesota Vikings. Both teams have looked horrible. So I think the Packers are not ready for the Saints, and then the Saints are going to destroy the Packers next week.
That's a bold prediction. I will say I think right now, as of now, the Saints do not look like the better team than the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. 42 points in consecutive weeks put up by the Packers, and Aaron Jones is giving that production. So I think if you look at the schedule, the Saints possibly lose to the Packers. They play the Lions, who gave the Packers a tough outing for the first half, and then sort of fizzled away. I think the Saints can beat the Lions. And then they play the Chargers before that bye week. Chargers, Justin Herbert, we have no idea what we're going to get out of them because they just contested with Kansas City into overtime. So these are some tough games. If the Saints are losing to the Raiders, I mean, who else are they going to lose to? So it's an intensity thing. I do believe it can be coached, but I think there is cause for concern with regards to Sean Payton having to get his players to actually play with the right intensity and to play with the discipline of not getting penalties. That takes time, right? When you don't have a preseason, it takes a little bit of time.
Well, I think, Geoffrey, you need to show some respect to the Green Bay Packers because if I'm right, both of us picked the Vikings to win the NFC North a few months ago, and none of us saw how bad the Vikings were going to be this season, but also how good the Packers are going to be. Yes, they beat the Vikings and Lions, 2 teams that look terrible right now, but they beat them by a wide margin. The Packers destroyed them, and that's what good teams do. They beat bad teams down. And Aaron Rodgers looks like he's in pristine form right now. I do have a question on Devontae Adams' health because he is basically the Michael Thomas to Drew Brees for Aaron Rodgers. But the Packers are going to give the Saints a fight. And I think one key thing to note, if the Saints can't put pressure on the quarterback, they're going to lose the game. I think that's facts because if you look at the Raiders game, the Raiders actually have a great offensive line. They have great run protection. They have great pass protection. And we saw what happened. The Saints defense does not know how to get off the field when they can't get pressure to a quarterback. So when you have a quarterback like Derek Carr ripping up your defense, no disrespect to Derek Carr, but he's not a top 5 quarterback. Then imagine what someone like Russell Wilson's going to do, or imagine someone like Kyler Murray, or even Tom Brady as the season progresses. I understand that there is a huge cause of concern right now amongst a lot of New Orleans Saints fans and also across the NFL for Drew Brees, but I also don't think the Saints have what it takes to bench Drew Brees. If you look at the cap moves, the free agency moves, and everything they did with restructuring their contracts, they're basically sacrificing the next 5 years for this 1 year. They're going all in on this year. So do you really think Sean Payton or Mickey Loomis or Pete Carmichael, do you think they have what it takes to say, hey, Drew, you're not playing well. We're going to put you on the bench for a guy who threw 30 interceptions last year? I don't think Sean Payton's going to make that move no matter how bad Drew Brees plays.
All right, first of all, this Packers team, they played the Minnesota Vikings, so a horrible secondary. And I know I picked them to win the NFC North, but I was wrong. This team is complete garbage. They have no chance of winning the NFC North. And this Lions team, they have a horrible rush defense, and Aaron Jones went off against them. I think the Saints are a completely different team. I think they can figure out their secondary and their rush defense by next week. And as for Drew Brees and the Saints, don't you think that spending all this money on all the players, basically sacrificing our next 5 years for this year, and Drew Brees, one of the reasons we are losing is because of Drew Brees being bad. Like, we're not going to make a Super Bowl because of Drew Brees. Don't you think they would consider benching Drew Brees because of how bad he's been playing?
You think we're gonna bench Drew Brees? Are you kidding me?
No,
Even if we lose a couple games.
no. If he keeps losing games, I think there's a chance because we put so much work into this one season that if one of the reasons we're losing is because of a quarterback, we got to replace him.
But Geoffrey, I think we should look at even last year. Drew Brees was struggling in that Minnesota Vikings wild card game. And Sean Payton knew that Taysom Hill was destroying the Minnesota Vikings defense, and Taysom Hill was the one who was giving momentum to the Saints. But what did Sean Payton do? He still put the ball in Drew Brees' hands and put Taysom Hill back on the sidelines. And Drew Brees ended up fumbling the ball, and that led to the Saints losing the game. But I think that just shows you that even though Drew Brees has struggled, or even when he goes through a struggling patch of games, Sean Payton still puts all of his trust into Drew Brees, because you cannot bench a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback for Jameis Winston, who, again, he himself has not even proven to be a great quarterback yet. And are you going to put Taysom Hill in, the guy who's thrown less than 15 passes in his career? I just think you can't make that move. I think you can't, no matter how bad Drew Brees plays. And a bad game for Drew Brees is 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 300, 200 yards. That's not even that bad.
I disagree. That was a horrible game. I mean, if you just look at the stats, it was a decent game, but just watching him play was just horrible.
Think about the intelligence, on-field intelligence he brings. I think if anything, they'll probably go to a run-heavy approach rather than taking out Brees and continuing the system they have. Just keep feeding the ball to Alvin Kamara. He was destroying the Raiders' defense yesterday. He was the star player. He deserves every single penny he got. That's what you need to do. Feed Kamara, get Murray involved more, and once Michael Thomas comes, just keep feeding him on short and intermediate routes. I think the Saints offense can keep flowing as they did last year.
I agree with that, but one more thing I would like to add. Kevin brought up how, Drew Brees was horrible against the Vikings, but Sean Payton didn't bench him. But that was one game. If the Saints keep losing games, multiple games, because of Drew Brees, and are in danger of not making the playoffs because of Drew Brees, don't you think there's a chance that Sean Payton might bench him? Like, even a little chance, just maybe, give him some rest to the playoffs so he can go off in the playoffs. Because, if you look at the past 3 years, in the past year, Drew Brees says, as the season progresses, he needs some rest. He's, Father Time's caught up to him. So, I don't know. We'll see.
I think, I understand the argument you're making, but if you just look at what Sean Payton has done in the past, I don't think he's going to do that. Like, look at last year. Drew Brees went out with a thumb injury against the Los Angeles Rams. And the game that he was supposed to come back against the Arizona Cardinals, Teddy Bridgewater at that point was 5-0. There was no point to rush Brees in. And Brees, there were still questions about if he was still 100% healthy. And still, Brees was put in that game against the Arizona Cardinals, a game that he had no need to play, no business to be in that game. And Sean Payton still put him in. So I think that just shows you the amount of trust that's there in between Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And I don't think that disappears in just a few games. I think the Saints can turn this around. They just need more discipline. And if anything, a schematic change is better than benching your Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, Kevin says the Saints, Sean Payton will not bench Drew Brees. I don't think Sean Payton should not bench Drew Brees. Drew Brees, do you want the ball in Drew Brees' hands or do you want the ball in Jameis Winston's hands when the game is on the line? That's pretty much what you're asking. It's no question Drew Brees. If Jameis Winston plays yesterday's game, we lose 34-17 because Jameis might not even get that last drive down the field where Drew Brees was pretty much 7 for 7, and he pretty much gave the Saints a chance at least to get a stop. But that field goal was pretty much the end point for the Saints. So Drew Brees being benched, I don't think that's a valid question right now. I don't think we need to think about that yet. But we do need to think about the Saints team, the fact that there are no fans as well in the Superdome. That could be a contributing factor to the Saints' dominance. They might not have the same intensity. So, yeah.
One more thing. All these morons like Colin Coward putting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Saints. What are you doing? The Saints literally destroyed them last week, and a week after, because of one bad performance, you're gonna put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Saints. Like, use some common sense for once. That's horrible. I don't know how they're analysts. It's complete garbage.
It's because they ride that Tampa Bay hype, and I don't know what more the Saints can do to shut that hype up, because all offseason it was Buccaneers to the Super Bowl, Buccaneers Patriots rematch, Buccaneers Chiefs. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be like the greatest thing ever. And what happened? The Saints shut that up in week 1, but now because they beat the Carolina Panthers,
Barely.
they're suddenly a top 5, top 7 team over the Saints. Like, that's beyond me. I don't understand how these people have primetime slots.
Give me a break. They barely beat the Panthers. The Panthers came back. Christian McCaffrey got injured, and you never know what can happen. The Panthers might even go to OT with the Bucs. Tom Brady didn't play well in the second half, and he didn't have Godwin, obviously, but it's just so much hype that we hate to see.